I'm Big Don Luca, smoke you like my hookah. Pump fake right, then I step back in illusion. That's a boss move maneuver, billionaire entrepreneur. Mark Cuban on the viewer, put you rookies on a skewer. I stay shitting on you boys like I came up from the sewer. Used to have a lot of dollars, now I got a lot fewer. What you saying to me? I hope you save it for me. I'm about to kill the game, and I put it in my testimony.
Hi, welcome to the Mainstream Mavs podcast. This is your host, Will. I'm joined here by my co-host, Jaren.
What is up, guys?
And today, Dallas Mavericks basketball is back, even if in a limited capacity. It was just preseason, but the Mavericks kicked off the 2023-2024 inaugural NBA season by playing in Abu Dhabi at 11 a.m. today versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Of course, a matinee affair here for us, but I honestly think it was a night game over there, if I'm pretty sure, or the evening game at the good old Etihad Arena. And I definitely triggered a few listeners by saying that wrong, but it's okay. I got to get, I'm still trying to get my enunciation down. And me and Jaren have been out of the game for a few weeks. We'll address that after the intro. But for any of you guys obviously listening, we are excited to get into this one today. Obviously, there is a lot to unravel. But at the same time, conversely, there isn't. Sort of just the nature of these preseason games. There's a lot of sort of surface level stuff that's that we can acknowledge happened, and we can sort of base opinions off of it. But at the end of the day, it is only the first preseason game, so you can't be too preemptive in trying to take too much away when it literally has only been one game. It would just be unfair to the Mavericks players, and it would not be constructive criticism. It would just be it'd be unfair criticism, Jaren. So we don't want to promote any of that sort of fanning. Obviously anybody can fan how they want, but the Mainstream Mavs podcast, we abide by antitrust laws. We are very fair, and we don't skew corporations, and that's what we do.
That is pretty much what we do.
Yeah.
But we got a lot more on the agenda, honestly, because what is it, 2.5 or 3 weeks? So we'll cover all that. But we'll definitely have an emphasis on the game because, of course, basketball is finally back, and I'm very excited, and I know you are, Will.
Yes, no, most definitely. It's been quite a while, and there's been just a lot of speculative articles that I've had to write that I'm just basing off of my basically the offseason knowledge that has been granted to me by what the Mavericks have done this offseason in terms of their signings and their trades and who they drafted. But I mean, there really has not been a lot of other content to dive into other than the simple transactions that were made. There just wasn't a lot of intriguing storylines in terms of what was coming out the summer, barring maybe the rookies development, and we'll get into that a little bit, especially with Olivier-Maxence Prosper and Derek Lively II. They obviously are generating a lot of buzz at Mavericks training camp, and they apparently progressed a lot just from when they were playing in Las Vegas Summer League to the start of training camp. So outside of that, there just really wasn't a lot of prevailing storylines throughout the summer. So I mean, it's nice to just actually have something that's tangible that we can look at and talk about, and not just going off pure speculative nonsense. So that's something I'm very excited about. But Jaren, do you have anything else before we get into the intro?
Honestly, not really. I think that we're happy to be back, of course. I think from here on out, moving forward, I know we'll talk about this a little further in a second, but I know moving forward, the podcast will be back in full form. We will, not that we weren't covering content, because we definitely were with the whole writing stuff, but we'll be back on the mic on a regular basis. We'll say that. So
yes, dual threat,
just
like Desmond Ritter. All
there
right.
we go. I don't know about dual. He's got the legs, but
I just had to throw that one out there just to trigger the Cowboy fans on the podcast. But no, I mean, that's I do think that we do have a shot at the Super Bowl this year. But do the Mavericks have a shot do the Mavericks have a shot at the NBA title? You'll find out right after the break. Here is an ad from our sponsor, Spotify for Podcasters. All right, guys. So before we get into the Mavericks 100-11-99 loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves in their first preseason game in Abu Dhabi, Jaren and I are going to address our absence, our sabbatical, if you will, over the last couple weeks. We've obviously, still been keeping up with the team very steadily, as you will see during this podcast. It's not like our knowledge just fell off a cliff or anything, but we have obviously took on a bigger role over at the Smoking Cuban with writing, and that has obviously collided a little bit with some other things that have happened, both respectively in each of our personal lives. And I know last time, and I think even like 1 week before that, we said that, hey, we're not gonna be on any BS from here on out. We're gonna be on our shit with the podcast and all that sort of stuff. So for the people that listen on a decent basis, and you actually listen to our podcasts frequently when they come out, we do really apologize for the sort of lapse here. I will say as much that the break that we've kind of had over the last like 2 or 3 weeks was not by design, obviously, and I wouldn't say also that it was completely in our control either. There were a lot of other outside factors that were sort of interfering with it. But things have been resolved, and we are excited to move forward and, go full-fledged with the season. Luckily, things were kind of came into fruition for us in terms of, being able to record again right before the season. And, even if they didn't, I think that we would be too stubborn as to, not record once the season started after what we built up, in our first year with you guys last year. And we're looking to really regain our following here and build forward, because, we were kind of popping towards the end of last season, and, throughout our absence and our Twitter being taken down, obviously, I'm sure we lost a little bit of our listener base, but nonetheless, I think that we're going to grow into something, special as a podcast this year. So that's all I really have to say as far as, looking forward and looking back. Do you have anything else, Jaren, on our sabbatical?
Yeah. I mean, just to follow up with what you said, between, not trying to make any excuses for the both of us, but between school, writing now, personal lives, work, it has been a lot. And, I do think we're going to put real effort into trying to work in the podcast. Heck, I mean, maybe even an everyday basis moving forward. We have some plans, of course, some big plans for the podcast moving forward that y'all will, of course, be a part of. But yeah, I mean, moving forward, there really is no excuse, like we said, but we have some big things planned. And look, I mean, we weren't totally out of the loop in terms of NBA sort of, events happening, large events happening. And of course, things surrounding the team, we were not kind of, out of the loop of. So yeah, I mean, between that, the Damian Lillard stuff, the Drew Holiday stuff, media day now, and pretty much everything in between. I know we'll cover this a little bit, but Buddy Hield rumors, all of that, we did cover over at the Smoking Cuban. So if you do keep up with us on our Twitters or anything, you would see that, we were hard at work per se, but I do have a big announcement for I guess y'all rather. Me and Will be attending the first game of the season, not the home opener, but the first game of the season against the San Antonio Spurs. This will be our first traveling NBA game, so we're looking forward to covering that. But I mean,
I actually did go to one traveling NBA game.
You went to the Oklahoma City Thunder, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
No, not for the Mavericks, but I did go to a traveling NBA game. Yes.
This will be my first.
Oh yes.
Might not be my last this year, actually.
But no, I've never seen the Mavs play on the road, and that's what I'm really excited about. I mean, obviously, the anticipation just from a non-Mavs fan perspective of this game, it has all the aura, all the appeal. Wembanyama's debut.
Absolutely.
It could be something that we're looking back at 20 years from now, and really savoring and just appreciating that the fact that we got to attend. So definitely really excited for that. So we'll see how it goes. It also I'm feeling like it's just a very volatile type of game, just the way it's staged. It's like either, Victor Wembanyama is going to come in and score like 35 in his first game and, set the tone of, as a generational superstar going forward, or, I think that he comes in and, goes for like 2 for 11, emblematic of his summer league debut against the Hornets, where he got dunked on by Kai Jones and everything. Mavericks got some high flyers. Derrick Jones Jr. could get a lick at him in the short roll. You never know. So
I think Wemby will be eager to block some shots. So D-Live might be able to get one of those, but we'll see. So.
No, but my main point being is just I think it's going to be a fun game, and the reason I said that is just like I feel like with these sort of type of games, especially like a crazy rookie debut, or something that's just when it's a regular season sort of matchup, the hype is really built up for it. Either just absolutely pales in comparison to what it should have been, and just ends up being terrible, or it ends up cashing in. Like a couple years ago, I remember when Zion hit like 6 threes in his debut, and I was watching that live, and that was nuts because I don't even think he's hit 6 3 since. So I
actually I think that there's a funny stat that he's only shot 5 or 7 more threes in his extra 4 years, even though he's only played like 150 games or something like that. But yeah, he's only shot 5 more threes than his debut.
That's crazy. I thought he at least would like take some corner threes or something.
No, it was something like 5 or 7 or somewhere around there. I do know that. So
wow, that's wild. But anyhow, enough of that off-topic banter, obviously. Let's go ahead and talk about this game, and then after that, we're going to get into some of the off-season rumors and stuff that we missed, and some of the buzz that was leading up to media day and training camp. We'll sort of dissect that after that. But Jaren, getting into this game, obviously the Mavericks got off to a very slow start, shooting wise, both beyond the arc and seemingly anywhere else where they shot the ball in the first half, to kick off the 2023-24 season, even though it is preseason. There was really no positives in that first half, outside of the sort of chemistry and the defense that I thought was being, sort of catalyzed between Luka Doncic and Derek Lively a second there for a brief moment. But more specifically, obviously, Luka was really the only, beacon of light within that first half for the Mavericks. And the offense rather, just sort of came to a stalemate for whatever reason. I mean, I thought Minnesota did a fairly good job at, containing dribble penetration, and making the Mavericks, shoot. It didn't seem like the Mavericks were getting near as much at the rim as the Timberwolves were. But I mean, the Mavericks honestly didn't really have like that terrible of looks either. Luka and Kyrie obviously draw a lot of attention. The Timberwolves were trapping on the wings, and they were, doing a good job of, probing and trying to get the ball away once the second defender came over. So, I mean, it really just came down to guys missing open looks, and obviously you have 2 rookies out there. I feel like everybody has some jitters. There's going to be some hesitancy. It's the first preseason game. Outside of that, those veterans who have been there and done that, and could care less about the exhibition game. A lot of these guys, and of course, also want to make a new impression. It's their first time in Dallas for some of these newcomers like Grant Williams and stuff. So, there's a lot of layers, a lot of different excuses that you can sort of put into a blender and unravel as to why the Mavericks had such a sluggish start to the game. But we can't overanalyze it too much. It is just one preseason game, like I said. So Jaren, I mean, what were your thoughts on the first half and the slow shooting start by the Mavericks?
Yeah, honestly, I would say, obviously a lot of possessions were pretty disappointing. I think again, it's a first preseason game. You can't really judge much, but I mean, look, like some of the possessions were pretty disappointing in terms of, just getting off to right shots, finding open looks, or just, working the offensive set, simply be it. Some of those matches just weren't really found, and, guys were either checking up bad shots. I know Luka got in, and especially Kyrie for that matter, They got into some pretty tough shots. Simply put it, Minnesota had honestly a fairly good defensive night, or matinee or day. I don't know how you want to phrase it because it was night over there. But yeah, I mean, simply put it, like Minnesota made it tough on the offense, but even still, there was that, first game jitters, like we just said, and the Mavericks got some open looks. Of course, nothing really fell until that second quarter, really, where Grant Williams went on that two shots or a 2 3-pointer streak or whatever you want to call it, where he knocked down back-to-back 3-pointers. Outside of that, there wasn't really anything too exciting from that first half. There was a Derek Lively block. And then I think maybe less than a minute later, there was a Derek Lively lob from a Luka pass that was thrown down very, ferociously.
Yeah,
but
didn't Luka snake the pick and roll in that position?
Yeah, Luka snaked the pick and roll, and honestly, Derek Lively did a really good job of finding the pocket.
I was really happy with that because they talked about that in, some of the media day press conferences. I can't remember exactly who said it, whether it was Jay Kidd or maybe it was a radio appearance, but I know that the Mavericks are and Lively more specifically, they're putting a big emphasis on his screening and him trying to read and react to different situations, basically based upon what the ball handler is doing. And you have to be able to essentially know what type of screen, know what type of role you're going to kind of do, just kind of based on the guy's footwork sometimes. And that's obviously a hard skill to acquire. You got to have really good chemistry and you have to be in lockstep with the, obviously the guy that is handling the ball in that instance. So that was definitely something I was happy about with that play. But there were also a lot of other instances, where he was also kind of out of position on offense too. So, we definitely got the full Derek Lively experience today.
Yeah, and to add to that a little bit, I think it was a possession with Kyrie Irving where Derek Lively had to switch his screen. I think he was originally on the left side. Kyrie switched his dribble, and pretty quickly Derek Lively switched that screen to the right side. I think it led to the Kyrie only point. I can't remember if it was a fadeaway jumper or if it was like a floater off the glass. I can't really remember how he scored, but I do believe that it was that possession. And yeah, I mean, that ability to kind of switch on the screen, and not just that, but set a good screen. I honestly felt like I saw a lot better screen setting from Derek Lively than we did in Summer League.
Yeah,
which,
I mean, I will say this much. I think now he's at least making contact. Now it's just
he's making contact, exactly.
Yeah,
he's not
it is just a little like it's like a little just like pseudo shoulder bump, but
yeah,
it is better because he's so big that when he does interfere with somebody, it's obviously going to draw their attention at least a little bit. He's not. He's obviously not, Tyson Chandler yet, but he's not like, just running into a can of feathers. So,
exactly.
that much is definitely helpful. But, to speak on the legacy of our Lord and Savior, Dwight Powell, because I only say this because I saw it on Twitter. He did have a play where he on that Luka and one where Luka like threw it up basically.
Yeah.
It was actually Dwight Powell's advanced level screen setting as a veteran, rim roller, was on full display. He set 2 screens on that possession, rescreened for Luka at the last moment. And it was what gave Luka the space to get that shot off. So,
hey, look, Dwight Powell might be a great screen mentor for Derek Lively because based off that one play alone.
What else can he mentor for Derek Lively beside the ball, Jaren?
If Derek Lively wants to get savvy with it, he wants to get good at selling a foul, except hopefully he gets called for fouls this time. Or
getting hit in the head.
Fouls. Yeah, getting hit in the head. That's what I was trying to get at. So,
Derek
but
Lively,
outside of that, shooting one token 3-pointer every 30 games. There you go.
No, yeah, Dwight had his one in preseason today. But I think the worst part about that is I honestly think I probably do have a little bit more faith in Dwight's shot than I do Derek Lively's at this stage in his career.
Right now, yeah.
I mean, Dwight was like stroking it at one point. Well, I wouldn't say
in April.
Back in like April, no, it was like 20. Yeah, he was shooting like 3 threes a game, bro.
No, and he was stroking it. Like,
yeah, it was pick and pop foul. But I guess PPP went away, didn't it? So
no, it did. He tore his Achilles, and that was the end of it. So.
Yeah, that was. It's funny because like now he's relegated to being strictly a rim roller. You'd think that him tearing his Achilles would be the sort of, spark to go off in his head, or the light bulb, if you will, to be like, oh, maybe I should start expanding my game. I'm on the wrong side of 30, shoot a little bit more, but no, it's just full-fledged balls to the wall. I'm going to get a concussion. So that's that's how it goes. But
was it he had a mark on his back already? Like, it was a pretty bad scratch, I believe.
ooh,
On like the back of his shoulder, and I was like, in the first like quarter, and I was like, yeah, that's Dwight Powell right there. So
yeah, that's a battler right there.
that is about, and Dwight and
Yeah.
Luka Garza had a scratch over his eye.
Hey.
It was a physical game for a preseason game.
I know.
So.
Yeah, they were getting after it. But nonetheless, to speak on Dwight Powell, just since we're on the subject already, I'm not going to go too in depth, but I mean, he did play some of the worser defense that I've seen in recent memory. And it's funny because I said that sentence and I just remember saying that sentence like 80 times on the podcast last season.
We love the Mavericks. To quote Zach Lowe and honestly many other Mavericks fans, Dwight Powell is the cockroach of the NBA.
Wait, did he actually say that?
Yeah, he said that. It's like the most true statement I've ever heard. Like
what? Like, okay,
well,
elaborate upon it.
I don't know. He did off-season coverage, was talking about the Mavericks, and he was like, "Look, who's going to be the Mavericks starting center?" And all eyes are kind of hinting before. This is before all the J-Kid stuff came out about D-Live and stuff. But all eyes were kind of on Dwight Powell at that time, and he was like, "Look, like Mavericks fans don't really like this guy, and yet again, he's going to find himself as the starting center for what, like 3 years now." So I mean, that says something. He's defining pretty much every NBA. I don't know how to phrase it, but he's defining everything really. And I mean, you can't blame the guy.
He is defying the odds. I mean, we obviously know, Dwight Powell is the ultimate, sort of, statute of, a high character guy in the community. Obviously involved with a lot of things off the court. He's a great leader of the organization. I'll feed you all the, all the propaganda that you Dwight Powell stands want to hear out there, right? But in terms of his role going forward, that's definitely something that we're going to be monitoring. And I think one of the biggest prevailing storylines as we head forward from the end of training camp and the end of preseason is going to be the Mavericks starting center rotation, and who ends up getting that starting center position, and who ends up as the backup, and who ends up in that last spot, just in terms of how Jason Kidd sort of ran with the lineups today. It doesn't really seem like the Mavericks are going to go with Maxey at the 5. Obviously they can do it in spot minutes, but I feel like at least in their head, they think that they have, between Lively, Holmes, and Powell, maybe, they're at least going to probably try to get by with running those three guys at the 5 and nobody else. So, I'll be interested to see if their hand is ever forced to go small, because it's going to be really just predicated upon, if Holmes is good enough, or if Lively really does take a step here, and today was sort of just a deviation from the mean in terms of where he's really at. So that's going to be obviously one of the biggest things going forward, and definitely something that I was keeping a close eye on in this game. Just between all the centers, Jaren, how do you think all of them played today?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I think the big headliner was of course Derek Lively. He had some flashes, I would say, of, promise. I'll leave it at that. But overall, I don't think he played the best basketball. Me and you were pointing this out during the game, but at times he was kind of oftentimes he was caught just out of position on defense, really, which led to his 4 fouls. I believe it was only 4. I don't think he got a 5th.
Yeah, he never went back in after that.
Yeah, but it led to 4 early fouls, really. And in preseason, it's not like summer league. You don't have 10 fouls, you have 6 as a regular notice. So, outside of just some, rookie moments, I really honestly didn't mind him. But still, I don't think we've seen enough, obviously. And then of course to Dwight Powell's really not the best basketball ever played. Honestly, at times it didn't even feel like he was on the court. I'm not even sure if he had any offensive production. I don't think he had any points. Maybe he had a lob but that was about it. Or no,
Yeah,
actually, he
one
had
lob.
free throws. He had free throws. I do know that.
And he did have
Um,
there was one look off pass by Josh Green where he drew two
oh
defenders,
yeah, that's
pump
right.
faked the pass midair and then threw it to Powell.
That is right.
That was one of the better plays.
Yeah, that was a very savvy move.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna be honest, I was very surprised by Rashawn Holmes. I felt like he came in there. I don't know if it was because he's playing the second unit of the Timberwolves, but he came in there. He was playing really, really good.
Yeah.
Whether it was with his, traditional push shot, even on defense, he had a steal. Kind of honestly, it was an easy steal. I won't lie. Or an easy read
He had a
rather.
block too, right?
Yeah, he had a block as well. Like
Yeah, and he had
defensively, he looked pretty good. He
yeah.
was very active. His feet were very,
And there
very
was
active.
one possession, I believe Nas Reed was trying to go up with like a left-handed layup where he extended his arm full. He was trying to like get it over the backside of him before he could even like rise up with it. He slapped it down, went off his leg, and the ball went the other way. And that was another
Yeah,
really good play.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about him today. If you guys want to go check out me and Jaren's post-game articles up on the Smoking Cuban, we both have a post-game article up each. But I did 3 studs and 2 duds for the Mavericks game today. And I wrote, I might get a little bit of flack from Mavericks fans because I know everybody was really excited about how Jaden Hardy played. And I didn't put him on there
Oh,
just
come on. How can you not? No, I got the
okay,
post-game article.
hear me out. I put Rashawn Holmes, Luka, and Josh Green.
I like that. I
The
don't know,
only
just
because
because
I
think
mean, if I obviously wanted to put Hardy in there, and I mean, he had, don't get me wrong, his in between game today and his ability to get defenders on his hip and rise up in that mid range area was really impressive to me. And I thought he played pretty savvy from a playmaking perspective too. He had that
yeah,
one lob, I believe,
a
to
very nice
Powell.
lob too.
Yeah, that was the foul to Dwight. And foul to Dwight, no, the lob to Dwight. And and he I mean, he had that one pass to Josh in transition. Like, he was running, things looked good with him. And I really loved his offensive process. I didn't see anything really negatively defending. From a defensive perspective, the only reason I didn't include him is just because, I mean, he didn't have really the most efficient shooting performance when I looked back at the box score. I definitely, noticed that he probably chucked up a few threes there at the end, when he was getting some run there in the second half. But he was right there in contention to be included. I just wanted to highlight, how Rashawn Holmes played because, like you said, Jaren, I was very surprised about that. There wasn't really as much of a shock factor, I guess, with Hardy. And, I wrote about him and, Rashawn Holmes, he looks really big out there. That was one of the things I said in my article is, he's obviously dealt with a lot off the court the last couple seasons in Sacramento, and just in terms of, not, really having much of a role at all, being buried as the third center in that rotation behind, Domantas Sabonis and Alex Len. And, they obviously, play a much different play style than Holmes is accustomed to. A lot more back to the basket stuff with both of those guys. So, from that perspective, I thought I was really happy for him that he had such a good debut, and he, and obviously didn't really get a ton of minutes today, nor did anybody. I mean, the high man in minutes today was Jaden Hardy with 20, and everybody else played under 20 minutes. But, in his limited minutes, he looked really serviceable. He was holding down the dunker spot, and he was, anytime that there was, the Mavericks were able to get some dribble penetration, he had his hands ready to receive a pass and go up. And, defensively, he was just very stout. I mean, like I said, like he looked, big, but in a muscular sense, like he almost looks like he put on maybe a little bit of size from Sacramento, but it doesn't look like it's, affecting him athletically or anything. I mean, he did look like a beast out there in his short stint. So I was really happy about that. Obviously, due to his, lack of length and height, he's not going to be the coveted rim protector that we are looking for. I'm not trying to stage that, Rashawn Holmes is the long-term solution at center, right? But in terms of the 3 bigs that played today, and obviously I really did like, certain bits and pieces of what I saw from Lively. But there were obviously, just as you pointed out, Jaren, a lot of, rookie woes as well. I would say that Holmes probably did the best out of the 3 centers today.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that statement. I know this podcast is kind of all over the place, at least with this section, but to add one more guy to that list, I was very surprised with Dante Exum. I felt like he played a very overall great game. I think Defensively, I'm not sure if he registered any stats, but I feel like he had a very good defensive game. I mean, as he should. He came into the league as a very defensive-minded guy, and he kind of proved it. But to add to that too, I was kind of surprised by this. I, of course, never really watched him in his time in Utah, Cleveland, and wherever else he was. But I felt like his pace of play was really high compared to some others. I don't know if he came into
he pushes the
training
ball
camp.
upon getting a rebound
Yeah,
anytime. And
exactly.
in his media day presser, he talked about that,
Yeah,
about, like when he's out there, he does want to put an emphasis on, playing fast. And that's, an element that, well, obviously Jason Kidd's talked about, the Mavericks wanted to play fast more this year. And, specifically in the half court, I thought that they were getting into their possessions, or not the possessions rather, but their actions a little bit faster. I thought Luka was doing a better job at just initiating things. And I didn't really see any, panting, on the other end on defense. Like he was getting back, and you can definitely see the stamina that he accrued from, training, his regiment, before the FIBA World Cup, and then obviously staying in game shape, and basically playing almost every day throughout late August and early September. It's definitely paying dividends out there. But obviously the Mavericks have a plethora of guys that have that ability to get out in transition, and they did get I think they only had 10 fast break points today. Obviously Minnesota kind of ran the table in terms of all those sort of ancillary categories, like fast break points, second chance points, points in the paint. They kind of ran the stampede on the Mavericks. And that obviously, Minnesota, they did play their starters for a lot longer, so you can credit them to that. But going forward, the Mavericks with Josh Green and Exum out there, especially with their chemistry, and playing together on the Australian national team, I think when you get some of those lineups out there, especially with how Luka and Kyrie can have the ability to outlet pass, I definitely think that once the Mavericks can generate some more turnovers, they can get going fast on the other end. But we just didn't really see them generate a lot of turnovers today. I thought that everybody on the team today, like, in terms of a team defensive analysis, I thought that, everybody did a relatively decent job in terms of staying in front of their man and, not giving up dribble penetration, probably except for Dwight Powell. But there weren't a lot, there wasn't that, there wasn't that extra aspect of the defense where, guys were, flying around, picking out passing lanes, we're constantly trying to, strip the guy at the point of attack. There just wasn't a whole lot of that. Obviously, the few times that there was something like that. I remember like when Dante Exum, he, I think they were running. I can't remember who he's defending, but they were running like one of his guys off a curl off, and there was a bounce pass, and he got to it, and possession went like quickly down the other way. Ball was pushed. Obviously, that one fast break where Jaden Hardy picked, I think it was like McLaughlin at the point of attack or whatever.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and then he got to Josh, and that was a dunk. We need more of that. So obviously, I thought there's obviously going to be a lot of lapses, a lot of defensive installs that they're just not getting yet. But I'm sure as they get more comfortable within their scheme, the Mavericks, personnel in terms of the length and the athleticism they have on defense, they have the ability to get out and transition, and make turn offense into defense.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I mean, to add to that, do you want to talk about one, maybe two more guys that I feel like we haven't talked about? Josh Green enough, because again, he was in your 3 studs list. And then also Kyrie Irving. I don't know if you put him on the duds list. I don't know who you put on the duds
list. I think we should talk about Grant Williams too, because
great. Yeah, Grant Williams was his first game. So obviously, we can quickly cover those guys. But Josh Green, honestly, I felt like he played pretty well coming off the bench. I mean, it's a big year for him. Of course, contract extensions, those add to that as well. But also, coming into his 4th year, I feel like it's a big prove it year for Josh Green. What is he going to be in this league? Is kind of the big question right now. And I feel like he's going to have to be the one to answer that this season, really. And coming off the bench, I feel like he did prove a lot, at least as much as you can for a preseason game. Pushed the tempo a little bit, had some nice buckets here and there, had that one-on-one dribble where he took who was it? He took Kyle Anderson.
Kyle Anderson, yeah.
Yeah, he took Kyle Anderson off the dribble and got that easy blow by layup, I believe it was, and then also had that one-on-one with Gobert where he got that easy jump shot. And I mean, look, like those are all very impressive to me. He also had that very savvy pass to Dwight, as we previously mentioned, which we've come to accustomed to seeing, a flashy pass here and there from Josh, but that was definitely one of the better ones that we've seen in a while. So yeah, I mean, as far as Josh Green goes, I felt like defensively he played pretty solid. If his role is to come off the bench, I mean, I know Jason Kidd talked about, Tim Hardaway being the sixth man. Honestly, though, like I feel like Josh is well deserving of that six-man spot if he is to come off the bench. I personally, I don't think he's a guy that should come off the bench. I think he's a starter in my eyes. But look, if that is his role to start the year, I think that he should very well fill in that six-man type role for the Mavericks. He looked like he looked like he was coming off the bench today, filling in that six-man role. And he did honestly a very good job. I'm not going to take too much away because again, it is just the first preseason game. I don't think any of these rotations are really going to matter come 20 days from now. But I think I saw a lot of positives out of Josh. Is there anything that you want to add to that, or you want to
No, I mean,
transition?
I thought you did a great job summarizing how he plays. But I mean, only thing I would say is like, going forward, I do agree with you that I think he will start. Especially if he has took even another step offensively in the summer. I mean, it's just hard to leave a guy that adds so much dynamism to both sides of the ball in terms of being able to defend guards and more quick-footed wings, and also being able to be a spot-up shooter, and take guys off the dribble. I mean, he'd just be too good to not pair with Luka and Kyrie. And I mean, I think I think he could have a ton of driving lanes this year, just based on the pressure that Luka and Kyrie, draw us when they're all three out there together. I mean, I think that the Mavericks could get him going downhill quite a bit. And, even if they try to bring a help defender over, Josh is, savvy enough to make that pass to the whoever's probing in the dunker spot. And he's one of the few guys that, if he did really, work on tightening his handle, just looking a little bit more fluid as a ball handler and a playmaker, and a shot creator this offseason, I would expect big things from him. But, looking at some of the other guys, obviously I'm not taking away a ton because, nobody really played much. Kyrie, he wasn't being like too entirely aggressive out there. He was just trying to get his teammates involved. This is like year 13 of him playing in the NBA. I, doubt that, he's emptying the tank in the preseason. But, I'm not going to fault him for that. He has a long road ahead of him, and he's trying to play a lot of games this year. He talked about some of the more incentivized based things in his contract, in terms of, playing games that he wanted to negotiate with his agency and his agents, his sister, Shatalia Irving. So, obviously, he's uber motivated to play a lot this year after, the variety of sort of off the court factors, in tandem with injuries have definitely derailed the amount of games that he could have potentially played, the last few seasons in Brooklyn. So I'm very excited about that. It was good to hear. Obviously the NBA tightened up on, resting rules and restrictions and things of that nature. But, as long as players' health isn't, getting sacrificed too adversely, I do think it's a pretty good thing. And I think the players are happy about it too. So that's obviously good. But I mean, in terms of Kyrie, he had a few, really good, pull up, fadeaway jumpers in the mid-range area, got to his spots very seamlessly when he wanted to. And he, as Jaren alluded to, he took a few shots that were definitely more on the plane of, I'm trying to see how good of a shot I can hit. But I'm sure he'll obviously be a lot smarter with his shot selection, come the regular season stuff. So I'm not taking really too much away from him. Thought Grant Williams in his Mavericks debut, obviously 2 of 6 from outside. But I thought the process was really good. He was getting open a lot, surprisingly. And I mean, he is a good shooter. Shot 39.5% from 3 last year, I believe. So I'm, Grant Williams, came in, knocked down those 2 threes, obviously. But I mean, defensively, you saw the impact almost immediately. He was able to switch between, threes and, fives. He had he had a help side block. I believe it was on
The
Nas
first
Reed.
wedgie.
Yes.
Yeah, it was on a Nas Reed, yes.
Yes, yeah, it was on Nas Reed. That I mean, he really wasn't even involved within the defensive rotation of that play. He was just sort of kind of freelancing. Obviously his man wasn't going to get the ball, and he just came out of nowhere from the weak side and blocked it. And I mean, it's like stuff like that. The Mavericks did not have a guy that would just do that out of nowhere last year. And then on top of that, I mean, Grant Williams, his ability, despite how big he is, being 240, 245, big dude, he moves laterally just very sound, and he's extremely disciplined. Always keeps his hands down on defense. Between switching, onto a bigger guy like Cat, he has the strength to be able to not let him, to not get bullied. And then, even on quicker footed wings, I thought he did a pretty decent job staying with them today. I was really impressed with just how stout and how well he stayed in front of his man. I mean, I didn't obviously realize just how good of a defender he is. And, obviously the offensive game, outside of his 3-point shooting, definitely, he obviously has a lot of room for improvement. I don't know how much improvement he'll make in that area. Granted, he is kind of 24, but if he can make some strides there, I mean, he's going to be a very underrated pickup for the Mavericks. And that's, coming from me. And, a lot of other Mavs fans who would probably say, for the time being, that the pickup was definitely overrated within the Mavericks fans, sort of sphere, just because it was, their only marquee, sort of free agent signing, above a minimum contract. But that's not really emblematic of, how good of an off season they had. So I'm not going to unfairly persecute them from that standpoint. But no, I mean, Grant, he did play, just very, well-rounded basketball on both sides of the ball. And he's a very savvy, just team guy. He's, setting a lot of off-ball screens, doing a lot of dirty work that, people aren't necessarily seeing when they, unless you're watching him specifically on TV. So, I mean, I was, definitely, I enjoyed what I saw from him. Nothing like crazy impressive, obviously, but I liked what I saw from him in that first half. And then, lastly, I think, if you want to touch up a little bit on Omax, just because I know we talked about Derek a little bit, but I thought we at least talk about both rookies, and then, we'll talk a little bit about the second half, and then just move on to a couple stuff from, leading up to media day that we kind of missed.
Yeah, real quickly, I do want to touch up on Grant Williams just a little bit. One thing that I saw offensively that was very emblematic of what Dorian Finney-Smith would do was just his ability to rotate off ball around the wings to the top of the arc. Kind of wherever he kind of needs to be. He's good at finding pockets within the defense in terms of being around the 3-point line, what I'm saying. And there was one, he missed it, but there was one where he was able to kind of probe his way to the top of the arch, or top of the key, sorry. And he got off a very open three off of a, pretty good little Luka pass that was cross court. But look, the only player I can really think that could do that, because I know Reggie was very static in his movements, kind of just kept at the corners. Maybe he would flare out to the wing just a little bit. But Dorian, he's very good at moving off ball. We never really had a guy that could shoot open threes at the top of the arc outside of Dorian. And I feel like Grant Williams is going to cover that role very well. Defensively, pretty much everything you said is how I feel. I think he was a little slow-footed at times, kind of just leaving his hips a little open. But again, it's first preseason games. I can't really take too much from that. But to touch up on Omax just a little bit, yeah, I mean, he looked. I think both the rookies had very rookie games. I guess Derek Lively, in my opinion, had very much a better game than Omax.
Yes,
but Omax, I mean, he was kind of just. I don't even know how to say it, like without just like
bashing
not
him.
sounding like basketball savvy, but like he just really didn't look like he knew where he was on the court.
On
Was
both
either
sides of the
caught in
ball.
some. What were you saying?
I said on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, on both sides of the ball, really,
Yeah.
yeah. Because on offense, I never really saw him touch the ball. Was kind of just.
I thought, and he got a couple looks from the corner, and there were a couple times that he attempted to like attack a closeoff or something.
He
of
did,
that
yeah,
nature,
and then
but
he got it, yeah.
I definitely, my first impression was that I don't want to be mean, but like the baglessness, like the baglessness of his dribble package and stuff like that, his ability to actually take the steps to get by an NBA defender. I didn't think what he was trying to do was as effective as it may have been in summer league. I mean, even in summer league, guys are just getting used to the speed of play and everything like that. There's a lot of times guys can literally just blow past each other because they have a quicker first step. And at the NBA level, guys have been doing this. I mean, they're just too vetted and experienced. Like they literally can, predict your step almost, at least the best of the best defenders before you make it. And, you have like a 6'9", all world defender and Jalen McDaniels, kind of,
He was
basically,
the
no,
ball.
yeah, he was on his shit, there was at least like, I think,
on Luka too. Luka was
yeah,
getting
on
hit.
Luka too. And I mean, Omax, I think he had like one or two plays. He tried to attack him, he like dribbled off his foot or something. He at least had like one or two turnovers. And then, overall, he just, even when he got one time where he, was able to drive to the rim, got like right underneath the basket. He did the same thing they did in summer league. It honestly was like decently effective, but he plants himself inside the restricted area. And then if you guys are watching on YouTube, you can see me right now. And he just like pump fakes like 2 times trying to get the defender up, but it didn't work too well. And I can't remember if he got like a shot block or like he missed it or what, but I remember he like fell down and it was just kind of a catastrophe. But I mean, look, like, obviously I give him credit because he plays his ass off. Like he's hustling extremely hard. You can tell that these are, he's not just, as bad as he displayed today, at least. I think a lot of that has to do with, first game ever, technically on an NBA court, sort of jitters. Obviously, being in the starting lineup, that probably adds another layer of nervousness, stuff like that. But, once he calms down and, starts, playing within himself, I think we'll see some really good things from him. But, in the same vein as Lively, it's just a huge uncertainty in terms of, if he is ready to start. Obviously, the rumor circulating that about how impressive the rookies were heading into training camp and everything was really promising. But, based on today's performance, I would definitely say he isn't. To piggyback, I guess, on how he played defensively as well. He, I thought he did a good job, as a head up defender, like when he had to defend on one-on-one scenarios and, just kind of, hawking his man down, whatever, contesting shots. Just as we saw in summer league, his defensive intangibles and his effort and his length and everything like that is, it's just simply too much to where, it's not going to translate even at the NBA level. Those, that's his strong suits of his game. But you could definitely see that there were some rookie woes there with him. Just from a mental perspective, he lost his man off ball a few times. He allowed a leakage. Got caught ball watching his guy slip back door. Made a 45 cut and was able to finish at the rim. So obviously, those things, he's gonna have to correct in the film room and. It'll just be a lot of repetition there, but in his debut, I was obviously a little bit disappointed, but I mean, the whole summarization of this game, essentially, the main theme of what we've been talking about, it is just preseason, so we can't take too much away. But I mean, I really don't have like a ton of other takeaways in terms of guys that are playing within the main rotation. I thought Markieff Morris, in his limited action, he looked in decent shape. He honestly looked a little bit more spry defensively. Just looked like, he just looked more fluid out there than I remember him being last year. And, he's had a full off season and sort of recover. He's dealing some injury stuff, obviously in Miami. And then when he got to Brooklyn for his like half season there or whatever. So I was happy that, he looked decent, but I mean, he didn't really play much. Obviously we talked about Hardy, but I give him all the praises in the world, for how he played. He was running the offense to a T when he had to in the second unit. I think, he obviously, his performance depreciated a little, as I said, when the game went on, but I mean, he looked really good as a shot creator today. And, I was really impressed specifically with the fact that his shot diet almost strictly came in the in-between game. Cause that's the next level for him to, really develop as a shot creator. And, he may have had like one layup and like 1 3, but he was making a point of emphasis on getting to his spots. And that's what really impressed me today. But, it's just like, I'm going to keep repeating it until, I beat a dead horse, but it is just one game. So, even then I'm not going to, start getting too preemptive in terms of, what his role is going to be. But I do think Hardy is, that sort of speculation before training camp about him, having a very limited role and, maybe taking a step back in the rotation because of Seth Curry, all that sort of stuff. He's only gotten better. That much we can say definitively since last year, just having watched him over the off season, the amount of work he's been putting in, with AJ Lawson in the gym this summer. I just, I'm ready for the season to start to see, how that actually goes. Cause personally, I just don't think that I don't think he's a guy that they can sort of gatekeep or hold back in the rotation. I think you sort of have to let the reins loose a little bit on him this year compared to last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And between him and Exum, I'm gonna be honest, this is a little off topic. I can't remember who got their absolute shit swatted out of Gobert, if it was him or Exum.
No, it was Josh Green. It was Josh Green.
Okay.
It was Josh Green.
All right. Anyways, but between him and Exum, I felt like
I mean, he almost got it over the top of him. Like
he did.
I wasn't disappointed in the process because, and I hate to get off topic, but I want to throw back to the 2022 playoffs first round series. Josh Green was one-on-one with Rudy Gobert on the wing. Obviously, it's before he had a real place in the rotation, but he was getting that sort of like ninth man minutes that Frank obviously ended up getting in the Sun series, but he had a really good game 3 on the road, if I remember, and I think it was like game 4 in Dallas or something like that, and he tried attacking Gobert from the right corner, and he tried to like do a spin move on him, and like it just like got like no verticality on his shot, just got its absolute shit swatted by Gobert. And I was at least happy today. He made a valiant effort. He definitely knew what he was coming up for. He almost tried doing like a sort of ranging like I wouldn't say hook shot, but I mean he really tried to
like a pseudo hook shot.
Sort of like he was trying to get some arc on it, and like just it was very similar to the layup he had over Kyle Anderson earlier in the game. But I mean, you just see like, bash Gobert all you want for, the offensive deficiencies, you throw in all the advanced metrics you want in terms of, a team maybe not ever being able to win with him, with, them running him as a drop coverage, big at the 5, but I mean, he can still block the shit out of the ball. Even, he's not too old yet. So, he's not any player under I'd say any player not named Luka or Kyrie that's under 6'10" attacking Rudy Gobert in a one-on-one scenario, it's definitely going to be a questionable decision for me.
No, that is very true. Yeah. That is very true. But to go back on topic a little bit, between Hardy and Exum, I feel like they both had really strong games. I know we kind of already talked about both, so I won't really go into depth. I'm going to be honest, I didn't really watch the fourth quarter because I was writing that post-game article, but in your opinion, out of the guys that were kind of pining for that last two-way roster spot, who do you think stuck out the most? I know Joe is it Wieskamp or Wieskamp?
Yeah, Wieskamp.
Yeah, I know that he kind of stuck out just looking at Twitter and stuff. Dexter Dennis, I do remember he had a few decent possessions on defense.
Yeah.
Jelly Walker, I know he got going a little bit. Outside of that, I don't really know how AJ did. I know AJ is guaranteed, of course, but I'm not sure how AJ did.
Obviously, we need to preface that Mike Miles was out with an illness. Obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, I feel kind of dumb for not addressing this at the beginning, but Tim Hardaway Jr. did not play. He was out. Was he dealing with some sort of soreness?
I think it was a hamstring strain or something like that.
Okay, but yeah, it wasn't anything like major though, right?
No, it was just he just tweaked it, I think.
So we'll see who all ends up playing, and then Derek Jones Jr. obviously was out with an illness as well. So in Miles Jr. and Derek Jones Jr. case, obviously they're just a little sick. So maybe just something they maybe got coronavirus from the camels or something out there in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, they got camel virus.
They got camel virus, camel 19. So something may have happened in that scenario, but I think that they'd probably be poised to play, hopefully on Saturday. But we'll have to see for sure. Obviously, I don't know exactly how they're doing. I'm not there with them in Abu Dhabi, so they obviously didn't play, and Mike Miles Jr. didn't play. Just in terms of that end of the bench group, but the guys that I did see. I thought AJ Lawson, he played pretty good defense. He definitely looked I might say he looked like the most, put together guy out there for sure. Once they started running with that group, he looked like the most NBA ready out of the 5 that I saw. He obviously didn't make a few threes, but just the way that he was moving offensively, he just looked like he was what he knew he was doing a lot more. Like he was acclimated within the Mavericks system, knew his role. I thought he played really good defense when he was in there. Didn't really have he obviously didn't have the fortune, from distance and from, beyond the arc that he wanted, but he did have a really good 4-point play, like right when he got in the game. That was really cool. So I'm really, excited to continue to watch his progress. He continues to add strength, get more stout defensively. I should have an article coming up in the next couple of days about him. So you guys peep that, the Smoking Cuban, whenever I drop that. So excited to write that piece. But he definitely looked, decent when he was in there, even though he definitely missed a lot of threes towards the end of the fourth quarter there. Most of them were, either back iron or in and outs. They weren't like bad misses per se. So the process was there. Jordan, Jelly Walker, if you will, he did a really good job running the offense. You can see his confidence from summer league is translated to the NBA level for sure. If he's open, he's going to shoot it, and he pushes the ball hard. He gets out in transition, ahead of guys to try to get open. There are definitely some strides that he's going to need to take in the playmaking department. Especially, I think a lot of it, and at the NBA level, just being able to see over guys in the screen and roll, and just being savvy enough to, trust where a guy is, even if you, because of his height, he's not able to see, maybe an angle. And that's something that JJ Barea was like really good at. So it's not like it's impossible for a guy at his size, being 5'11", but that will be something that, is obviously going to be more challenging for him at this level. Just running the pick and roll and stuff like that. He's definitely missed some guys rolling. He definitely probably missed Greg Brown a couple times in the short roll, stuff like that. So, but he's a really, he's a shot chucker, but half the time it goes in. So that's the best way to describe him. And, he has a good back to him. And, while I say he is a shot chucker, they aren't bad shots. If he is shooting off the dribble, he does a great job creating space for himself. He has possibly, I might say he has the best handles on the team outside of Kyrie. So I really
Jaden.
That's a far, or me,
Outside
or
Kyrie.
yeah, Jaden, that's a good one. But I think, those 3 are definitely, obviously Kyrie's in a class of his own, but between him and Jaden, I would say that they're in that sort of stratosphere. Dexter Dennis, I was actually kind of impressed with him. I didn't really know what to expect. He's definitely the most under the radar guy on this whole roster in terms of, I feel like he's been talked about the absolute least. He was announced that he was signed. I think the first guy, the second guy that the Mavericks signed to an Exhibit 10, because I feel like Jelly was the first, but he canned in a couple open threes, and apparently his big thing, as they kind of talked about in the broadcast, and Followell, or maybe Bobby Caralla shouted out Richard Stamen over there at Mavs Draft on Twitter, and he's been big on Dexter Dennis, and his 3-point shot developing more specifically. And he came in the game, and apparently Richard Stamen saying that while it didn't necessarily always go his way at Mississippi State, the process and his shot mechanics.
Alabama, or
A&M,
Texas A&M. Yes, I'm sorry, I had to correct you on that. Just because
I thought he played at Mississippi State.
No, he went to Texas A&M.
100%.
Dexter Dennis, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he finished at Mississippi State last year.
No, he went to Texas A&M. I can guarantee that. He was a 5th year. Yeah.
Okay.
I will put money on it. Sorry, I don't
put money on it. Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, he did. Let's see. Did he play at Mississippi State?
No, he played. Was it Wichita State? I can't remember where he played for 4 years, but he played somewhere for 4 years, and then as a 5th year grad, went to Texas A&M. And honestly,
you're right. I don't know why I was.
Hey, they're same colors. Same colors.
Yeah, same colors, I guess. All right. Well, my bad on that. But anyways, I did an article over him too back in the summer, guys. So that just shows you how much my mental state has deteriorated amidst all these troubling personal problems that prevented us from doing the podcast. But no, I'm just joking. But yeah, no, I just slipped my mind because of the colors for sure. But he played very well. And when he was at A&M, Richard Stamen said that, a big point of emphasis obviously was the shot mechanics, how good they were. And despite, his 3-point percentage, maybe being, slightly, just kind of average, throughout college. He shot pretty well with the Magic when he played for their summer league roster, and translated today, and he played really stout defense. He's got a really good frame. He's like 6'5", and he's not small. He's built really good, has good length, and I mean he's a dark horse out of the guys that I watched today, in terms of the most likely to make that final two-way spot or last guaranteed roster spot. If they do anything with Morris, which I don't really anticipate they do, but he is partially guaranteed, so you never know. So I mean I really liked what I saw from him today. Wieskamp got like the least run out of all the guys. He came in like just with a few minutes left to go, but he canned in a three and got a putback at the last minute, and he played good defense too. I mean, him and Dexter Dennis sort of mirrored each other in that aspect. So I liked what I saw from them. Greg Brown III, he did look, kind of very raw, especially offensively. There was like one possession where he got the ball like right at the end of the third quarter. It was sort of a hot potato. Jaden Hardy just gave it to him, and told him to shoot it because it was like 1 second on the clock. But it was like a wide open mid-range jumper at the end of the third quarter.
He airballed it, right?
Straight airballed it, yeah.
Yeah.
And a couple other possessions, just him in the short roll. There was a couple times that he was, trying to cut, that I think the Mavericks, guards could have done a better job of finding him. But there were a few times that he tried to attack, and he kind of just went up into a void of nothingness, just trying to use his athleticism to carry himself over like two defenders, and he just didn't have the strength to get himself over, and ended up getting blocked. I thought he did an okay job at using his length on defensively. He had to guard Luka Garza, which I wouldn't say, if he was getting rotation minutes for the Mavericks, or using an NBA game, he probably wouldn't have to play five, because he just doesn't have the build to do so from a strength perspective. Even though he is like 6'10", he's very, very much, has a huge frame for a wing from that perspective. But he did a good job at keeping his hands up. And, that's a guy who's obviously, Luka Garza is a pretty strong center. I mean, he's back to the basket, sort of traditional type of player. And he actually forced some misses in the post, and I was impressed with that. He kind of did get, for lack of a better term, he kind of did get bitched on the glass a little bit. But that kind of just happens when, based on the fact that he was kind of playing out of position a little bit. But I mean, the Mavericks obviously switched a lot. So, there were some lineups, where Brown was out there, with Rashawn Holmes. So, he got to play on the wing a little bit more. And I thought he looked a lot better defensively when, because he is just uber athletic, being 6'10", he has the ability to stay with those guys, wings, pretty easily. And, he's not as his lack of strength doesn't hurt him near as much, when he's playing 3 or 4. So, but definitely not the best game from him, I wouldn't say though. So I'm excited to see if he, makes a case for himself to get that last roster spot. But currently, despite me definitely saying that he would probably be the lead candidate to get it, that last two-way spot, before preseason, we're on the two-way watch squad, 25% of the way through preseason. Greg Brown's last in the rankings to get to get that spot. And I would probably say, Dexter Dennis is number 1 right now.
Really?
And then I'd say Jelly Walker is probably number 3.
Number 2.
Joe Wieskamp, number 2. And I strictly say that just from a positional standpoint. I think Jelly Walker will probably end up with the Mavericks organization one way or another. Hopefully, at least, because, I really like him. But the Mavericks just have too many guards, I think, in my opinion, for especially the way that, Dennis and Wieskamp played. But, we're going to have to see going forward. So that'll be an intriguing sort of battle. But I thought all those guys had some spirited minutes. I mean, the Mavericks, cut it down to an extent in that second half. They were able to sort of, their bench group, compared to the Timberwolves bench group, and the Timberwolves ran some of their starters pretty late there in the third quarter, but
they did.
They pulled them. They weren't playing them by like the end of the third quarter and stuff like that. But, that's when the Mavericks actually were able to go on a run when they pulled their starters and stuff. And they cut to like 5, but then it sort of ballooned up to like 10 or 12 and just kind of stayed there for the rest of the game. And it was just, very much like you were just watching a pickup basketball game that fourth quarter. There was like no real rhyme or reason to me watching it other than to, have this little segment on the podcast about it. So, I'm glad I did. But it
was
it was definitely the epitome of exhibition and, definitely felt like a charity match, but, it was cool. Outside, I don't really have another, a lot of other takeaways. I'm excited for the Mavericks next game in Abu Dhabi.
Yes.
But, before we wrap up this podcast, Jaren, Is there anything that you want to talk about, that we need to touch up on? Obviously, we can't go too in depth, because we already kind of missed the mark to an extent. But amidst our absence, what did we miss leading up to training camp before the Mavericks actually got to Abu Dhabi and started kicking off preseason?
Yeah, I mean, do we want to take this from a Mavericks perspective, or do we want to talk about the whole Damian Lillard kind of stuff? Because I mean, you can talk about any of those two things, but I guess.
Well, I mean, I think in terms of like the national NBA stuff, we don't need to go too in depth into it, but
Yeah, I mean,
obviously there was a lot of player movement since we've been gone, and there obviously was the aspect of if the Mavericks could maybe get involved in any of the fallout of the Damian Lillard trade, and they were obviously unable to. We'll see if any of those pieces that have been dealt, specifically to Portland, with Robert Williams III and Malcolm Brogdon, if those are going to, those veterans are going to be made available at any time soon. Maybe the trade deadline, those could definitely help the Mavericks roster. But as of right now, it doesn't really seem like the Trailblazers are willing to deal those guys. I know they both reported to training camp already. So there's obviously that. But from a national standpoint, non-Maverick standpoint, the shock value with the Lillard deal, just because we do run an NBA podcast, that was insane. Just the way that ended up materializing, and I'm intrigued to see what if Jimmy Butler's right about this whole tampering deal with Milwaukee.
I doubt.
But
I mean, I think that they have to conduct investigation. I think in anything.
Yeah.
But, I don't think there'll be anything.
I mean, I mean, obviously that's going to be a scary tandem, and there was I wrote a little bit of some Giannis speculation, just in terms of taking a run at the rumor mill, obviously, just given some of the comments Giannis made over the summer, in terms of him wanting to stay in Milwaukee and stuff like that. And I think just like literally like 2 or 3 days after I dropped my piece, Dame was traded. So
yeah, that's the same.
That's that's a scary pairing. Luckily they're not in the West, so we don't really have to talk about them from a records perspective. But I mean that's definitely a game that Jaren and I don't know if we had circled to going to initially, but that we might want to definitely take a look at seeing this year. That'd be really fun.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I'm really excited for Milwaukee, though. I mean, that's going to be insanely fun. I mean, I don't even know exactly how it's like fully going to look. But those two guys complement each other extremely well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I pretty much agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
Moving this to the Mavericks a little bit, just kind of, I guess, briefly covering media day. I don't think it was as juicy as last year's media day. Last year's media day.
And I think that's good. And I think that's good.
No, it's very good. That is very good. Like the juiciest thing we got.
Outside of the whole little Tim Hardaway stuff, but even that, I didn't feel like it wasn't as punctuated as the Christian Wood situation. It definitely felt like it was more just sort of misinterpretation, because Tim he's been a consummate professional through the offseason amidst all these trade rumors and everything. I expect him to continue to do so, just because that's the type of guy he is. But I will say as much that it was enough smoke, just in terms of him being coming into media day saying that he didn't know if he was going to be here, and then obviously Jason Kidd had a radio appearance where he said he kind of envisioned a 6-man role for Hardaway, and apparently had never discussed it with Tim directly, according to the media day presser. But we'll see if it materializes in anything for the time being. But right now, I don't think it's anything too intriguing. I think the Mavericks are at least going to go into the season with Tim. But do you have anything more on that front?
Honestly, no. The only thing that kind of does scare me a little bit is the fact that Jason Kidd didn't cover it over with Tim Hardaway before saying those comments. I don't think Tim is the kind of guy to act, maliciously in that stint and say, hey, like, I think I'm a starter in this league. I don't think he's that kind of guy. But I mean, if he were to ever act that way, I could see that being something that comes up sooner rather than later. But, that's neither there, or I don't know how to say.
Here nor there.
Yeah, here or there. But I mean, hopefully he's playing October 7th in 2 days on Saturday. So hopefully he will be available. I mean, outside of that,
Dallas was listed as a team that was a suitor for Buddy Hield.
Yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to go over that.
Obviously, he has not been traded yet, so definitely continue to monitor that situation. There obviously is a redundancy there with the Mavericks logjam at guard and literally having Hardaway. So you'd expect that if that was something that presented itself, on the Nico Harrison's phone, that he would definitely be trying to include Tim Hardaway Jr. in that, potentially even expand that deal even further. But I mean, outside of that, there's just really not a whole lot. We're just gonna move with our best foot forward. as we head into this 2023-2024 NBA season. Media day was, a spectacle in itself, but it was a lot more just encouraging quotes from everybody. And, we obviously kind of missed the coverage of it. So it was really fun, and I enjoyed media day, but we did write a lot about it. So, if you really do want to get our in-depth thoughts on that, go check out a lot of the stuff that I put out for media day. I don't think Jaren was able to get too much out because
I was on vacation. So
yes,
I did listen to the full
yes,
entire.
he did listen to the whole thing though, but
yeah,
we're gonna definitely integrate media day quotes and stuff like that into our podcast and bring them back up. But there just wasn't a whole lot of like juicy stuff. But otherwise, we appreciate you guys listening to our podcast in our first comeback episode. We're excited to be back on Saturday after the game. We're going to continue to go full-fledged with this. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Mainstream214, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. And of course on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe to us at the Mainstream Mavs Podcast. And this has been Will and Jaren, and we will catch you guys in the next one.